lens is awesome.
Hey, what's up everybody? David Zhao here, and this is the Sony 24mm f1.4 G Master lens, and it is truly my favorite lens. There's a lot of lenses I like and a few lenses I love, but this is my favorite. I spoke about it in the last video, how I have 3 lenses that are my go-to. The 85mm f1.4 G Master lens for portraits, the 24-70 f2.8 G Master lens for just versatility and running and gunning, and the 24mm f1.4 G Master lens for my traveling lens. Now, what I mean by that is not only traveling abroad to other cities, to other countries, I mean just anywhere. This is my always on the camera lens. If I want to switch to a portrait lens, I'll switch to it. If I wanted a medium focal length, I'll switch to it. But otherwise, that's a lens that stays on my camera. Now, let's begin with build quality. As you all know, I'm a sucker for lenses that are lightweight and compact, and this lens checks off both of those boxes. Weighing in at only 445 grams or 15.7 ounces, just shy of a pound, it literally fits into the palm of your hand. Now, the Sony mirrorless camera bodies are lightweight as is, and this lens balances perfectly. The two put together feels like one complete package. Now let's cover some of the physical features. It has a metal aperture ring that has a click-declick switch. It has a focus hold button that can be used as a custom button assigned through the menu. It has an autofocus manual focus switch, and it has a rubber focus ring with a robust linear fly-by-wire electronic focusing. Sony noted that this lens is dust and moisture resistant, and there is a thin rubber gasket around the mount which creates a moisture seal. It's not fully weather sealed, but it can stand up to some environmental challenges, so that's comforting. Now let's talk about image quality. When it comes to image quality, this thing is exactly what you expect. Sony claims spectacular resolution even at f1.4, and I'd have to agree. Even when shooting at f1.4, you get very sharp centers and fairly sharp corners with very little corner blur. After some tests, it looks like the sharpest aperture on this lens lands somewhere around f5.6, and it stays extremely sharp until about f11. Once you reach f16, however, the properties of the phenomenon known as diffraction really starts to degrade the sharpness of your images. So that's sharpness, but what about how this lens deals with the negative artifacts that tend to appear, like chromatic aberration, vignetting, and distortion? Well, CA looks to be extremely well controlled, with even areas of heavy contrast only showing a little bit of that green magenta shift. Out of the hundreds of photos I've taken with this lens, there was only one photo that had a lot of chromatic aberration, and it was this heavily contrasted shot in North Carolina while Annette and I were hiking. But I think that was just an edge case, considering there have been hundreds of photos taken since then with varying degrees of contrast, and it hasn't shown up that badly again. Next up, vignetting and distortion. It does look like this lens does suffer from some level of vignetting in the corners, however, it's about par for the course when it comes to wide-angled lenses. For video, this could potentially be an issue, however, for photos, this is a very simple fix in Lightroom with a click of a button. But if we're talking about distortion, it seems like there is a tiny amount of distortion. However, it's one of those cases where there's so little distortion that in practice, it really doesn't affect the image at all. Finally, let's look at the bokeh that this lens produces. At f1.4, this lens can create beautiful background blur. As noted in the how to shoot in manual mode tutorial, to make your depth of field even shallower, you can get closer to your subject. So even at 24mm, you can get beautiful bokeh. And at a focal length like 24mm, that's easy to do. So combining the wide aperture of f1.4 and the ability to get close to someone while still maintaining a wide field of view, you get this beautiful look, something I like to refer to as environmental portraits. You manage to get a sharp subject, combined with a wide vista behind your subject for context, and on top of that, you still get subject separation from the shallow depth of field from the combination of the f1.4 and the close proximity. This creates beautiful images that lets you showcase the location of the photo, giving context to your portraits while maintaining a focus on the subject. Similar to the awe I experienced when I was shooting with the Sigma 16mm f1.4, this focal length and aperture combination is so incredible for traveling. And on top of all of that, the lens renders bokeh in a very pleasing way. Next, let's discuss video quality. Flaring in bright sunlight is actually very cinematic and aesthetic. It has this unique quality to it where you really do get those separate lens elements separated out throughout the lens flare, and it looks very, very good. Now, this is of course subjective. If you really don't like any flaring at all and you like it to be as controlled as possible, take a look at this characteristic and you decide on whether or not you like it. Personally, for me, it kind of has that cinematic quality to it that I just personally really like having in my shots. You don't get any blown out images and you get these creative flares. Next is autofocus speed. Autofocus speed is incredibly responsive. In both photo and video, this thing doesn't really miss a beat. It seems like it can focus from minimum close focus distance all the way out to infinity in just about under a second, and silently. That's another thing. No autofocus motor noise, which is great for video if you're vlogging or have just any setup where the microphone is on top of your camera. You'll never have to worry about hearing the autofocus motors working to keep things in focus. Also, the focal length of 24mm is perfect for handheld shooting. You might have noticed that the more telephoto your lens is, the more noticeable camera shake is. Therefore, inversely, the wider your lens is, the less noticeable your camera shake is. This means that this is a great focal length for shooting on the go. For situations like traveling or vlogging, you won't have to make your audience motion sick from all the shaky footage. One negative thing, coming back to the vignetting we spoke about earlier, I did just want to bring attention to the fact that this could be a concern if things like this bother you. However, in my experience, the vignetting isn't terribly noticeable in everyday footage that you'd get. It's really only super noticeable when you're testing the lens and looking for the flaw. Now, let's talk about things I love about this lens. You know what's my favorite thing about this focal length combined with its lightweight qualities? How well it works on a gimbal. The A7 III plus the 24mm f1.4 G Master plus the Zhiyun Weebill crane has become one of my go-to stabilizer setups for the past month. It just all works so well together, it balances incredibly easily, it's super compact, and I can shoot with it for hours on end without it like destroying my shoulders. And most importantly, the footage looks so good. That and the compact size of the setup means I'm willing to bring the setup with me wherever I go, without the fear of it being too cumbersome to carry around. Another great thing about this is what I mentioned at the beginning of this video. It's my always on the body camera lens, which means I'm totally fine with traveling anywhere with just this lens and camera body with the camera strap on. I can just walk around and get shots, and that means more footage with less effort. Finally, in general, I've been in love with this field of view, since it's the same field of view that I could get with my Sigma 16mm f1.4 on my Sony a6500. But now I can get it on my full-frame Sony a7 III, which means even more shallow depth of field and better low-light performance. On top of that, I can use it knowing that it's the best construction offered by Sony, which gives me a bit of professional reassurance when I want to bring it onto jobs with me. Now, things I don't like about this lens. I try to be as honest as I can with these reviews, but I've had this lens for a few months now and I haven't really found a reason to dislike it. I thought about mentioning the fact that this lens is like $1,398, and that's obviously expensive when compared to alternative solutions like the Carl Zeiss 24mm f1.8, which is only $649, or the APS-C option, the Sigma 16mm f1.4, which is $399. However, when you compare it to the professional 24mm lenses from the Canon or Nikon lineups, it's priced pretty competitively. Canon's latest 24mm f1.4 L-series lens is priced at $1,549, and Nikon's latest Nikkor 24mm f1.4 G lens is priced at $1,996. So when you look at it from that perspective, the G Master is positioned pretty well at only $1,398. So here's my conclusion. This lens is incredibly sharp, starting at even f1.4, and gets sharper as you go all the way up to f5.6 when you hit critical sharpness. It has nearly no distortion despite it being a wide-angled lens, and it handles chromatic aberration very well. It renders bokeh in a pleasing and smooth way. It has beautiful lens flares. It's compact and lightweight. It balances perfectly on the Sony a7 III, and it's priced competitively when you compare it to what other brands are selling similar quality lenses at. If you don't have a wide-angle lens in your arsenal, this is really the one. I'm a big fan of it because it's useful for so many types of shots. astrophotography, real estate photography, travel photography, vlogging, gimbal work, low light work, and more. This is a lens that truly gets high recommendations from myself, and if you're interested in checking it out, links will be down in the description down below. If you're unsure, definitely try renting it for a weekend when you're on a trip or if you have a shoot, and see what you think of it. Alright ladies and gentlemen, that's it for this video. Those were my thoughts and that was my review of the Sony 24mm f1.4 G Master lens. If you liked the video or found it helpful, go ahead and hit that like button. It lets me know what kind of content that you all are looking for. If you own this lens, I would love to hear your thoughts on it in the comment section down below. Is there a lens that you'd prefer over this one? Let's discuss. If you want to see more content like this, please smack that subscribe button and don't forget to ring that notification bell to stay alerted on when new videos are uploaded. Alright, that's it for this one.